Hi, I'm Bruce Burke. We're back with another episode of the Absolutely Incredible podcast. We're talking with people in the AI space that are doing absolutely incredible things with AI. With me today, I have Jonathan Mast. He is the CEO of Whitebeard Strategies. I don't know where he got the name, but Jonathan, you interviewed me, but I don't know you that well. So I want you to, one, introduce yourself, and then two, tell us about Whitebeard Strategies and what you do.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks, Bruce. Yeah, we had a great time on our podcast when I had you on the podcast, and I appreciate that. A little bit about me. I have, as you said, if people are listening, they probably won't get the joke, but if you're watching, you can see I've got a white beard that I've been growing for almost 8 years. I started growing it when my first granddaughter was grown, and she still loves it, as does my wife. So, granddaughter and wife approved beard. We're all good and ready to go. And when a couple years ago, my background, Bruce, is in digital marketing and sales. I've spent most of my early career in sales. Then I did some sales training for a few years. Then thought it would be fun to start a digital marketing agency, and I did. We ran that for almost 15 years. And then back in late 2022, as you probably recall, ChatGPT came out with a graphical user interface on top of AI. And for really the first time, those of us that weren't programmers, and I'm not a programmer, I'm a sales and marketing guy, we had the opportunity to start using these AI tools. And as I did so, bear with me, my phone just decided to make noise, so we'll turn that off. As I did so, I was candidly just blown away. I was like, oh my goodness, the things that it helped me do. And I immediately, in my mind, and I still see it this way, Bruce, I see AI as something that amplifies skill and experience. And as much as I was loving it, what I noticed is I still was at the digital marketing agency that I was running, and my team didn't necessarily have the same feelings. They were scared. They not necessarily petrified, but they're like, man, this is going to take my job at some point, because that marketing campaign that we're writing for that client, we can now literally do in a third the time, and it's better than what it was. And so they were concerned, and I felt being an ADD visionary entrepreneur that's self-identified. If you've ever read any of the traction books or any EOS stuff, you know where I'm going with that visionary entrepreneur. I after 15 years in the digital agency space, I was ready to try something new, and it seemed like I remember having this thought, Bruce, and you may laugh. I remember in high school, that was many years ago. I went to a high school that was about 30 minutes away from my house, and driving home with kids after a soccer game or whatever was going on, and we'd stop at the local gas station to get a soda because we wanted something to drink. And I remember at the time thinking, I wish I could just buy a bottle of water. This was back in the 80s, and in the mid 80s, you couldn't buy bottled water anywhere. It didn't exist. I mean, if you wanted water, you went to the drinking fountain on the side of the gas station and hoped it was clean. And I remember thinking, wow, that would have been really cool. And in late 2022, I remember having the thought, don't let this one miss you like the water did. Again, just kind of a flashback, but I never did anything with the water other than thinking it would have been really cool. And of course, now that's a multi-billion-dollar business, just selling water. And so I thought, it's time for a change. I'd like to do something different. And I just started reaching out to and building a community based on adding value. I had just finished reading one of Alex Hormozi's latest books, and not that he's the end all and be all, but that book was talking a lot about adding value to your audience. Build your audience by adding value. Make sure that your offers are such that people can't imagine not paying for them because of all the value. A mentor of mine that I've worked with for years had always said, give away all the information and charge for implementation. And I thought, I'm in a great spot in my life. I can try this concept and see if it works. If I would just go out and add value, could I build a community? And would some people in that community go, well, geez, Jonathan, you're an expert in this area. Could we hire you to help us do that? And one thing led to another. That was a little over 2 years ago. We've now got a group of over 500,000 people we reach out to every day. And our business has changed a lot. Whitebeard Strategies now really focuses on three things. One, AI coaching. So we do one-to-many group coaching, and we pick topics that are relevant and then teach them. Later today, for example, I'm teaching a class on how to use free internet tools. Everybody's like, what tools can I use for free? I'm sick of all the subscriptions. You and I were just talking in the prep call about how it always feels good when you get rid of one of those monthly subscriptions because you found another tool that does three things. And so, we do that. We also do masterminds, which I often refer to as mentoring, much smaller group sessions where we sit down and we understand what is that business or that organization looking to achieve. And we help do that in a group setting. That way our costs stay in line. And then the last thing we do is I am an absolute fan, I think Bruce, of creating custom GPTs, which are literally trained models of generally ChatGPT, but can be Claude, can be Gemini and others that are trained on specific tasks and data so that they don't just reflect what ChatGPT knows. But for example, I could upload my employee manual and it could be an expert on my employee manual, knowing that my team's going to sign they read it, but probably never have done it if they're anything like I was when I was employed. Yeah, sure, I read that, no problem. And then,
Yeah. Let me
but
initial
imagine
that.
imagine having an expert that literally knows your employee manual and your policies and procedures probably better than an HR manager, and is instantly available to every team member you have on their phone, their computer, their tablet, wherever they're at in the world. And that's just one simple example. So we also build out an entire library of those, and we have a membership for that. So our business is really, I try to summarize it this way, Bruce, we're focused on helping businesses and their teams leverage AI. And we hope that by doing so, they can save time, they can make more money, and they can add more value to their audience. And what excites me, Bruce, for the first time in my 56 years, we can actually do all three at the same time. We can save time, increase our profit margins, and deliver more value to our clients all at the same time. And that's really exciting from where I sit. Because again, being in sales and marketing, it was always, you could have two of the three, but you could never have all three.
Exactly. So in building these custom GTPs that you've built and providing this library to people, and now all of a sudden there's new GTP-5, right? There's right. Have you tested it? Have you tested your GTPs in it? And do they run any differently, or are you noticing differences in running it?
So yeah, GPT-5, as we're recording this, just came out last week, if I remember right. I was traveling at the time, and I remember being totally underwhelmed by it. And when it came out, it certainly didn't. That's a whole separate topic, but it didn't live up to the hype. But it is a better model for those of you using it. And over the weekend, OpenAI basically said, "Mea culpa. We rolled it out too fast. We didn't do it right. It wasn't working. Try again." And it is getting better, and it is better, I think, overall. Yes, we have tested not every one of our GPTs. We have over 300 of them right now, but we have tested at least 100 of them are done. Our team's continuing to go through that. They work very, very similarly. If anything, we're finding the answers are just a bit more nuanced. In other words, a little bit better, maybe a little bit more in depth. We're finding the model is asking questions a little more often, which we like. So in other words, if there's ambiguity, instead of assuming, like we know what happens as we as humans assume, we resemble the southbound end of a northbound mule. And now AI, instead of assuming and then just delivering garbage, we see it tends to, not always, but tends to ask more clarifying questions to target in. So overall, I think 5 is a good move. Again, I think that OpenAI has a major marketing hype problem, but that's unrelated really to the quality of 5. It's just that it didn't live up to all the things they've been telling us it was. I love Sam Altman, their CEO, going, "It's too dangerous to release right now because it's smarter than humans." No, it's not. Not any humans I know, at least. So, yeah.
Sam loves the hype.
He does.
OpenAI is a hype company. They love the press, and apparently the press loves them. So there's a symbiotic relationship there, and God bless him. He knows how to hype it. So that's business, man. That's sales. That's marketing. That's the way it goes.
But overall, I think 5 is a good model. I think it's going to continue to improve. And we find we've had some users in our community report some problems with their custom GPTs, but typically it's just because they were built in the wrong way, if I can say that. And it's hard to get into all the details, but we follow frameworks. I'm a big fan. I think, Bruce, you know that, and you are as well, of frameworks. And when we do that and we have a tested framework that's foundational, it like building a building. If you have a good, strong foundation, the building tends to last pretty well. If it doesn't have a good foundation, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've seen also that this GTP5 coming out is now pushing some of the other GTPs, mostly Claude, it seems like, to push out some more updates more recently in the last day or so. And it seems like OpenAI is trying to win with, they announced some really, really effective pricing. And I saw a video clip this morning from Peter, the Moonshots guy. Not going to try his last name, Diademus, I think it is.
But I know, I know Peter. He's over in New Zealand,
and he's interviewing the CEO of Stability AI, and he was talking about how expensive 4.0 was for OpenAI to run, for people to utilize it and ask it questions and work with it, whereas GTP5 is a lot cheaper for them to put out to the market and let people utilize now.
Yeah, and I think we're going to continue to see that. We're going to, because of the computing advancements, the memory advancements, the coding advancements, we're going to see that we're going to get, as consumers, more and more functionality and probably performance in most cases out of these models. And yet our costs are going to continue to go down. You know, when I look at what I was, obviously, if people aren't a ChatGPT membership, they may not understand that there's a whole nother side to AI models, and that's the API side, where you're actually paying essentially per query. It's kind of like putting gas in your car. The more you drive, the more you have to fill it with fuel. The more you use the API, the more you pay for it. You know, ChatGPT 3.5, when it came out, was significantly more expensive than what we're paying sometimes for the new models today that work much better. And I think that's just a lot due to processing and coding and how they've done that. I've especially seen that with Claude, where, you know, Claude tended to be quite grandiose, I guess, in how it did its prompts, and it was sent so much information back that it got very costly. They're making changes in that so that instead of, for example, sending all 500 pages of your document back every time you prompt it, it sends back page 22 that you asked a question about. So there's a lot of things like that, you know, that I think are beginning to add value. And ultimately, in my mind, Bruce, it's great because this is all competition, and competition drives innovation. And as consumers, we win with that innovation.
At this point, and you know they're throwing billions at this, right? You know, and they're asking for $20 a month. At this point, is this the free part of the freemium, and later we're going to be paying for this? Are they giving it away right now to get you in?
I don't think so. I think what we're going to see, though, is we're going to see more pricing tiers than what we have right now. Even in the last 90 days, there's been more pricing tiers that have rolled out. ChatGPT has new ones. Claude has new ones. Perplexity has new ones. Google hasn't changed that to the best of my knowledge, but I did just get a pop-up this morning, so maybe they've changed that because they wanted me to upgrade, so they probably have. I just haven't looked at the details. And I think what you're seeing is we're going to see, instead of an all-you-can-eat buffet for anybody and everybody, they're going to walk in and they're going to look and go, Jonathan, you're 6'4" and you're almost 400 pounds. Dude, you're paying triple because you're going to eat a lot of food. You know, you're going to use, the more we use AI, the more it is that we're going to go ahead and pay for it. And I think that's what we're going to see more than anything else. I think we're going to see more usage limitations that are put in place. And I definitely think that's going to apply with different things. Video, for example. AI video is so amazing what you can do right now. But the CPU cycles that it takes, and therefore the electricity that it takes, is mind-boggling compared to a text prompt. And, you know, so that's a lot more expensive. You know, I just was at a conference last week and I talked to a gentleman. He used Google's new VO3 to create a really amazing, I mean, like Hollywood level production video. But people were like, oh my gosh, it was so expensive. How can you afford to do that? Well, he spent less than $500 to create a 30-second, again, Hollywood style video. And his response was very simple. If I had hired a Hollywood studio to do that, it would have cost me between easily $50,000 to $100,000. I did it for $500 and about 8 hours of my team's work. So in the big picture, it's still very, very affordable. but different levels are affordable for different people. The average consumer isn't going to spend $500 to create a 30-second video, but a business that can do that for a marketing campaign, very affordable.
Do you think the pricing for the consumer facing LLM, I'm talking now, do you think it will revert to like an API call, for input and output? Do you think they'll track tokens and show you like what your
I
current
don't think
cost
so,
is?
because the general consensus, at least from what I hear in my community, Bruce, is that people don't like credits. And the reason they don't like credits is it's hard to compute what that means in dollars to us, or whatever country you're in, whatever your currency is. It's hard to convert that. I think what we will likely see is we will see more clear usage limitations than what we have right now. But at the same point, it is in their best interest to have consumers using these tools and then demanding that their employers purchase them. I have a personal ChatGPT plan that costs $20 a month. I also have a Teams account that I buy for every member of my team. And so that's $30 a month, not $20 a month. And I've got, I think, 11 people now we're paying. So, I'm paying $330 a month for my team to have it. If they weren't demanding it, now I'm in the AI training business, so it's probably a little different, but if I was a normal business and my team wasn't demanding it, I'd probably go, well, not everybody needs it. And so by allowing that user for $20 a month or possibly less on certain plans to get access, I think that's going to make a difference. And it's going to drive the higher end sales. I also think we're going to see some massive shifts, I believe, in power and computing power. So both like literally power as in like electrical power and computing power over the next probably 2 years. And I can't predict what it is. My crystal ball is cloudy and cracked. But as the models need more power and they need more computing cycles and all that, I think we're going to see some breakthroughs with new chips and new infrastructures and things that, again, I don't understand, way over my pay grade. And I also think we're going to see that on the electrical side. I mean, we just saw recently Microsoft went and bought 3 Mile Island. If you're probably like me, Bruce, old enough to remember when that was all shut down due to nuclear issues, now Microsoft's buying and investing billions of dollars into it because why? They need the power to drive their AI models.
Yeah, they really do. That's going to be the money that's being spent on the NVIDIA chips and other chips, AMD and other providers, right? Is probably going to be about equal to the money spent on building out power stations to essentially power these all these chips and these AI factories that Jensen calls them. I think you're right. I saw an article about 6 months ago about a startup that was doing optical interconnection from server to server, from chip to chip, and now NVIDIA has gotten some kind of optical stuff that's interconnecting the systems, which will make for faster systems, right? And apparently they're really pushing on that, and they're going to put out even more. They're making that even more powerful, so you can move more data from one unit to the next unit as you're doing. Jensen made a big point of saying these are not your ordinary data centers. These aren't just a bunch of servers waiting for pings.
Exactly.
These things are actively training models. They're AI factories, he calls them. He said, like, these aren't even really like data centers. These aren't the data centers that you and I have, traveled through many times in our lives. These things are working in a completely different fashion than what we're used to.
Absolutely. It's interesting you mentioned that. I actually drove past a Switch data center recently in my travels, and my wife was like, "What is that?" And it was expansive. And again, I don't know, I'm not talking a lot about the company specifically, but those data centers, whether it's Amazon or any other company, Google, you name it, Microsoft, Switch, whomever, they are expanding massively. The last time I'd been there was about 3 years ago at Orbai, and it was probably triple the size that it was 3 years ago. And I know from the way it works, again, it's the same thing you're talking about. They're filled full of processors and not necessarily servers in the traditional way. And they're not, like you said, they're not just waiting. They're actively doing 24/7, 365 days a year. And those processing requirements have grown exponentially from where we used to be. So yeah, I'm excited about it. I believe that, again, over the next couple of years, this is going to change likely the way that we do a lot of our computing, even on a household level, because that technology tends to flow downhill. And especially, I think from a power electrical perspective, I think we're going to be seeing technologies that, again, maybe we've thought of, like, and I'm probably going to get wrong, but hydrogen. That, the byproduct of a hydrogen output is water, if I've got that right. And so, again, I'm not an expert there, but I think we're going to see things that have kind of been, movie style, Star Trek style. Oh, that may happen somewhere down the road. I think we're going to see those in the next couple of years from at least an electrical and a computing power perspective.
Man the photon torpedoes, Jonathan. Man the photon.
Yes. I've seen those episodes. Yes. Uh-huh.
It's interesting what you're talking about. I think it was just last week, and it's already gone through a news cycle, so everybody forgot about it already. Zuckerberg from Meta says that they're rolling out a data center that's got the footprint that's the size of Manhattan.
Yeah.
Now,
Isn't that
how much
amazing when you
power
think about
is
that?
that going to take, right? How much power is that going to take to run that thing running 24/7, 365? That's a big footprint for a data center, man. That's
Oh,
huge.
it's massive. I remember it was about 2 years ago. I'm from the Midwest, and we have a chain of grocers in the Midwest called Meijer, and they're large stores. They're grocery and general goods and that type of stuff. They're large stores, not, probably similar to a Walmart or something like that, but on a regional level. And I remember talking to somebody, and I can't validate this, but they said that the electrical bill just to run the lights in those buildings ran about $500,000 a month per building. Now, that building, again, think of a Walmart, and then how many Walmarts could we put in Manhattan? And we know they're not single-story buildings either; they're multi-story buildings. So you think about that. I mean, the quite literally probably billions of dollars just to keep the lights on. Now, the good news, in data center doesn't need a lot of lights, so that's the good news. We can turn a lot of the lights off, but it needs a tremendous amount of cooling. It needs obviously a tremendous amount of processing power and electricity to keep those things humming. And because we're reliant on them, it means redundancies, as you know. So it's not just one grid coming in, it's multiple fail safes, because we don't like it if our Gmail goes down. ChatGPT has a hiccup. The whole world knows about it in a moment, because everybody's
Yes.
like, what happened to my ChatGPT? So yeah, it's very interesting times. I'm excited because, being ADD, Bruce, things change really fast, and I love that because there's always something new going on. I know a lot of people, they're like, it's a little too fast, but for me and my ADD brain at the moment, I'm really loving it.
Yeah, and doing the newsletter, and there's no searching for the stories, right? It's like I'm only taking the good ones, right, and
Well,
putting the
yeah,
newsletter
it's
out
not
every
about
day.
finding
And
him. It's about, yeah, how do I weed out all the junk? Because
yes,
not even junk. How do I, just like you said, how do you find the best? Because there's so
yeah,
much happening.
yeah. I mostly am trying to focus on one, the investment that's being made. This
Yep,
is going to be the largest technology build out that we've ever
ever
experienced.
seen.
This is the seventh wave of technology that this is something like we've never seen before.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to make the dot-com bubble that we went through from an investment perspective seem like a blip on the radar.
I think it's like already like $500 billion this year, just in the big deals, right? Just the
Sure.
big chunks, right? Easily, and that's just in the AI. That's just the LLM companies, Thinking Machines Lab and Safe Super Intelligence
Hmm.
and Meta and those. This is not all the hardware and right? That's this
Exactly. Yeah.
right. I mean, this is just the thing, and the talent pool apparently is so small, like major athletics, right, that these guys are getting $1 million contracts, $3 million, $100 million contracts now to and I hear now that it's not like, oh, here's $1 billion up front, come on in. They're tiered like executive contracts. They're performance oriented and all that sort of thing. You're not going to get $100 million and go put your feet on the desk at Meta, but um, where do you
No,
see
but
this
it's
all
amazing
going?
when you think of it, though. I mean, let's face it. You can probably, like me, remember back to the movie Revenge of the Nerds, and the nerds are now making more money than some of these pro athletes. And as a guy who was never a pro athlete, that's kind of cool.
It's funny. I was actually thinking of that this morning. The lead story was we've made more unicorns with AI very quickly, right? There's like,
Oh yeah,
I don't know,
absolutely.
almost 500 unicorns have been made in the last couple of years since AI came out, right? And I was thinking to myself that Rush song, and the meek shall inherit,
Absolutely.
right? So the other couple of weeks ago, I saw that you interviewed my dear old friend David Schroepfer. I'm going to give you a quick background. David Schroepfer wrote a book called "The Smartphone Wallet: What You Need
Hmm.
to Know for the Innovation Coming Ahead," or something like that was the rest of the thing. And he was the keynote speaker at the first conference that I ever organized called Social Mobile Payments in
Mm.
2011, I think it was.
Okay.
I saw the interview that you did with him, and he actually, I got to be pretty good friends with David. He lives in New York. I don't know if he still does. And when I got the Google Glass, I was one of the Google Glass explorers. I was the first one in Florida that got it. And I went to New York to the, what they call the base camp, the Google Glass base camp that was
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
Chelsea market there. David went with me and took all the pictures of me with the Google Glass, and then we went and had dinner and stuff. Really nice guy, really great guy.
Yeah. We had a great conversation.
What is he doing now? I haven't even like lined into like he was doing a security thing, kind of like OAuth a while back.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't know
trying to
what he's
actually
doing now.
remember the specifics.
Yeah, you talked to a
Probably,
lot of
probably like you know. I mean, as you do a ton of interviews, I'm trying to go back and remember what was he doing. I remember David, but I'm trying to remember what he was doing right
some
now.
kind
Off the
of
top of my head.
cybersecurity thing. It was a
Yeah, yeah,
cybersecurity thing.
he's still very much into that, and we had a great conversation about that because, of course, as you know, as it relates to AI, security is a big issue. The ability, even on the simplest level, the ability of somebody to spoof you as to what's going on and use AI to do that effectively. I just saw an Instagram reel or YouTube short one. I don't remember what recently as I was traveling, and it's actually a campaign going the other way to help people recognize that. And it was a young woman, probably 18 to 20 years old, going, "Grandpa, I'm okay. You don't need to send any money,
Oh
because
yeah,
what's happening is, and I literally had a client of mine, this happened to about a year ago, uh, chairman of the board of a large company. He's almost 80 years old, but very, very smart, very, very wise. And he got a phone call from what he thought was his grandson, and that he'd been arrested, that he was in jail, he needed bail money, needed $15,000. And my client, who's a generous man, said, "Well, yeah, if you needed to get out, let me go get you the money." He literally was on his way to the bank when his daughter, his grandson's mother, called and said, "Hey, how's life?" And he's like, "Oh, did you not hear so and so's in jail?" And she goes, "No, he's not. I just talked to him on the phone. He's at work." And my client was like, "What do you mean? I just talked to him and he was in
wow.
jail." And they unwound it pretty quickly. But he was, 20 minutes from having sent wiring $15,000 to his grandson, which, if you had the money and your grandkid called, who probably wouldn't do that when it sounded real? And he's like, it sounded exactly like my grandson. He said he knew what words, and they'd probably done a little research on the kid, whatever, figured it out. Not kid, I mean, he's employed and he's an adult, but yeah, it's just amazing the things that are available. And that's just one of many, many, many things, as you know.
I saw on you're on Facebook just like I am. Bonnie Factor, you probably know her from.
Hmm.
She's one of the
Yeah.
AI folks. She put a video up the other day. In my mind, it was Bonnie Factor. It was total fabrication. It was just a couple of second clips, right? Like as you do with the AI video, right? Because it does cost a ton of money. But yeah, it was so good that I really couldn't tell. Now that was just her in the background. There was some noise, like she was out, in the city at night or something like that. But very good, very good,
Yeah.
and it's getting really scary. I mean, with the potential, there's also a lot of peril.
There is. And, to me, yeah, like the deep fakes that we're talking about, that's wait till the next presidential campaign here in the US. I'm sure we're going to see some, maybe not from the major parties, but we're going to see it happening. It's
Oh
why,
yeah,
to me, Bruce, what's so important as an investor, as you are, or other areas, having a strong personal brand in 2025, if you're in business, I think is more important than it's ever been, simply because you need to be known for what you stand for, so that if somebody does try to do that to you, when you stand up and go, that wasn't me, most
Yeah.
people are likely to go, yeah, that's right, Bruce would never do that.
Yeah.
And, but if you don't have that strong personal brand as a business leader nowadays, and that happens to you, which could through a series of different things, I mean, let's face it, none of us had heard of the guy that went to the Coldplay concert with the girl he was having. I didn't know. I didn't know who the guy was. That could have been entire. I don't think it was fake because he admitted to it, but that could have been entirely fake. And if he didn't have a strong personal brand to stand up to, everybody would have believed it.
Yeah. Apparently, he didn't have a strong personal brand,
Yeah,
and everybody immediately
yeah.
believed it.
Yeah, it doesn't help when you come out and then admit that you've made a mistake. Is generally not the best way to do that. But and on the other side, I'm sure we're going to see some politicians that have done things they don't want to be caught for, that get caught, and they're going to do that and claim it wasn't me, it was AI. So it's interesting times. It's fun.
When I was doing the newsletter this morning, I put one out this morning before this interview. I didn't include it in the newsletter, but there was an interview with Mark Cuban, and he said straight up, whoever is going to use AI to will win the midterms, right? Take the AI marketing under your arm and go take the midterms, right? That's the message, right? And I think he's right. I think back to like the dream team that put together like Barack Obama's campaign, right? Can you imagine that team now armed with like AI, like what they could really do now? I mean, that was a award-winning campaign, right? And
Absolutely.
And
well, we
imagine
now
how
have
they
the
could
ability to segment our
superpower that.
message. Yeah, I mean, think about how we can personalize messaging now, because again, it's just computing cycles. So if Bruce, if you and I are part of a group of 100 different people in the age group and interest that we're at, and they want to target us, they don't just have to target us as a group of 100 or 1,000. They could literally target us individually and talk about, the type of motorcycle that I ride, or, whatever it is, the type of vehicle I drive, something they know is relevant to me. They could know where I live in the community I'm at, something going on in the community. And AI can do a really good job, as most humans can, of going, okay, if I know a lot about Bruce, and I don't know where you live, but so hypothetically, you live in Tampa, Florida, and I see what's going on, I could talk about these events that happened in the last few days and get Bruce's attention. And all of that can happen now in seconds. And that's, something we've just never truly been able to do that. I mean, we would segment audiences, but it was hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people in an audience, not one-on-one.
Yeah. And now you can, hyper personalization was one of the tracks that I was focused on when I was building out that Fin Plus AI conference.
Yeah.
Like that was like hyper personalization. I don't think even at this point, right? Because we're still in the early days. This is the worst that we'll ever be, right? So. I don't think the hyper personalization has even really begun to take effect yet. I mean, we're starting to see a little bit of it, as you get to know your LLM now, and they're putting in some more things where it will remember chats. That's one of the updates to Claude. It will have more memory about chats and stuff like that, right? So the hyper personalization is really just starting. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be, you're going to think that whoever's talking to you is in the room with you. You really will.
Well, but there's some cool things that come out of that as well that, and I'm taking a huge segue, so bring me back if you don't want me to go down this rabbit hole. But imagine, for example, if I had the ability to take my grandfather or my father, who are both deceased, and that there was enough data that we could create an AI model for them, and that I could have a conversation, admittedly with an AI version of my grandfather, but that understood a lot about his life, where he lived, all that. I can tell you, I would pay dear dollars to be able to do that with my father, who's passed away.
Yeah.
Not because
my mom passed recently, and that would be
yeah, I mean, think about that from just a market perspective. And the more data we have, the more we can do those types of things. And it's just, the possibilities. I think we're going to see so many things happening, Bruce, right now. And that's why the investment side is so interesting. We don't know what we don't know yet. And we're going to see things that a year from now, we're like, what? I never thought of that.
Yeah. I'm actually rolling out in stealth. I'm putting out just that whole new stealth company that I'm rolling out, whole new product. It's so obvious that nobody has thought about it, and I
Yeah.
can't say what it is.
Well, that's under, you know,
But
but
it's
some of it's that way. It's like the nose in the middle of our face. We're so used to seeing something, we don't see it. We don't see that opportunity. Sometimes those are the most monumental opportunities that come along.
well, I just read an article again just before we came on here, and they were talking about everything that we made for the internet era, for the let's call it the
Hmm.
.com era, is going to need to be remade for the AI era.
Yes,
Everything,
absolutely. Yes.
schools, right? The way we put computers in the schools, and we taught them all how to use computers, and we taught them how to make web pages and how to do Excel and how to. Now we need to teach them how to do AI. There was a
Yeah.
professor from I think George Mason University, an economist professor, said yesterday like 1/3 of training in colleges should be AI now in all
Well,
schools, not just colleges. He was a
yeah.
university professor, so you know.
I think and I'll step on a soapbox for a moment, Bruce. I think it's one of the areas that education is making a massive mistake in. They're treating AI only as something that could cause a student to cheat, and they're not looking at any of the plus sides. Yeah, you know what? We cheated when we went through school, whether we did or we knew people did, but cheating happened when we were in school. Cheating's happening today. I'm not trying to dismiss that, but I look at it from an educational perspective. Imagine just for a moment that every student, and most of them do nowadays, at least the public schools in the US, they've all got some device, a tablet, a Chromebook, something on their desk with them. And imagine as the teacher talks about the lesson plan that Bruce, it looks at you and says, Bruce, we know you're a senior and you love investing. So when we start talking about trigonometry or whatever, we're going to do it through the tone and the filter of investing. When we talk about world history and government, we're going to do it through the filter of investments so that you, Bruce, become interested in it. And Sally, who's sitting over on the side, who maybe is in love with cooking, now instead is going to learn chemistry through cooking and things like that. Because now when we put it through that filter that we're interested in, something that intrigues us, now all of a sudden as students, we want to learn. You know, I remember going through history and funny story, we bought a house a couple years ago and it had the address 1493, I think it was, 14, whatever it was. And it reminded me of the Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492 or something like that. I had to learn that for a test and I forgot it immediately after that. Had I learned it in the context of something that mattered to me, other than that test, I may have actually remembered it. It may have come in, and my wife wouldn't have had to laugh at me and say, "You don't remember that?" I'm like, "I don't remember that. No." So to me, education is just, and this is in every area, but it's one of those areas that there's so much potential for good to help our students of all ages, whether they're our age or they're young, to learn things in a manner that excites them. Because and I got to say, most of the teachers I talk to, Bruce, I talked to a number of them about this. One of my soapboxes, the teachers are on board with this, but the administration in most of the schools is not. And it's a
Yeah.
shame. I think it's really going to hurt, especially higher education, because let's face it, we as employers, I don't want to hire somebody that doesn't know how to use AI. If you're not familiar with how to use it to get the most out of your day and you deliver the most value to both the company and our team and our clients, then you're not the right person for the job. And
Right.
school is teaching these young people that, oh, AI is evil, we shouldn't be doing it. And that's the wrong boat. I'm sorry, that's not going to win the race.
No, and if we're trying to be, America first, and America's the leader in AI and everything else, we need to get to training like right now. I mean, one, just the fact that we don't have enough people and they're having to pay hundreds of millions of dollars to get to people, that should tell you something right there that we don't have, enough brain trust, right? Two, if AI can superpower a guy like me, right? Just think of all of us superpowered, right? Why aren't we training people to be superpowered, right? I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous.
if it does amplify skill and experience, and I believe it does, then why wouldn't we want to do that? Why would we want to go, no, I'd rather walk to school instead of take the bus? No, I'd rather take the bus. It's a lot more convenient and probably safer too. But yet, I think it's normal, Bruce. You, I'm sure, based on what I've read from you, Bruce, you've seen this happen throughout history. Whether it was the printing press, whether it was the steam engine, whether it was the internal combustion engine, whether it was the internet, whether it was a PC on a desk, every one of these changes. And by the way, I think that that AI is even more significant than any of those to the culture. But all of those led to the naysayers and the fear mongers coming out and going, "Oh no, this is going to ruin everything for us." Just yesterday, author that I know and respect a lot, Michael Hyatt, had shared a post from ex-Google executive, and basically he was coming out talking about how, yes, there will be new opportunities, but there's going to be so few compared to the people that lose their jobs. And I'm like, this is the type of talk that we've proven wrong at every turn in history. It's happened. There have been people, the intelligentsia, so to speak, that have said, "Oh, you don't get it." And every time they're wrong. So no offense to anybody listening, but I believe they're wrong because historically, if I'm looking at a track record for a company to invest in, I want to look at what's happened historically. The fearmongers have never been right. So I'm not thinking they're going to be right this time either.
There was no social media influencers in the 70s. There was no web page builders in the 70s. There was no JSON coders in the 70s, right? They didn't exist, right? There's going to be new jobs created. There's going to be new skill sets created. Somebody's got to oil the robots and somebody's got to train the machines, right? Somebody's got to do it. So I know the guy who you're talking about. Several times he's that's kind of his pitch, Mo something. It's a weirdo last name.
Yeah.
And I've seen several of the videos and they pop up frequently when I'm choosing videos to include in the news thing. And I'm like, I want to put out a positive message. There's enough negative messaging.
Amen. Absolutely.
But cautionary, yes, but inflammatory, no, right? Yes, we need to understand that there's peril. Yes, we need to understand there's a downside, right? But we've got enough down in our life, right? Let's look at what's ahead. I mean, I could become a billionaire. You could become a billionaire. Everybody could become a billionaire, essentially, with this thing, right? It's not just everybody gets a car like Oprah anymore. You know what I mean?
And you can look back historically. Had we taken the same attitude, let's say with electricity when it came into the home, electricity can kill. Electricity can cause fires. But I don't think there's anybody in any developed country today that wants to get rid of electricity. I mean, I was just last week in the Dominican Republic, and that's not exactly a rich country. And they love their AC, let me tell you, because it's hot, and they don't want to give that up. And I'm not saying they should, but yes, everything in life has dangers. Food, we need to eat food in order to live, but you can eat too much of it and kill yourself too. So that doesn't mean we shouldn't eat food because we could do something bad. We shouldn't use electricity because something bad could happen. And that's what I see. And I think it's normal. Anytime something new comes up, we get two sides, those that don't really want to look at the negatives at all, and that's not wise, and those that don't want to look at anything other than the negatives. And I don't think that is wise either. And I think in the long run, it's those people that embrace things and use them responsibly that are going to find they add tremendous value to their lives, their community, and those around them.
So we got about 15 minutes left. I know you got to jump off a couple minutes early for another meeting. Let's do this. We've been with AI, let's say 2.5, 3 years. We've had it for 2.5, 3 years, where the average consumer's known it and we're using it. What's it going to look like 5 years from now for Jonathan Mast?
No idea. I can't predict. It's again, it's we don't know what we don't know. I think AI is going to continue to evolve at a breakneck pace for at least the next 5 years. I think we're going to have opportunities and things that exist that we don't today. And a lot of those, by the way, are going to be amazing. One of my favorite stories out there is research that's been being done on the vast diabetes research that's been done over, I believe, the last 50 years. There's, as you can imagine, there's tons and tons and tons of research on that. And they've used AI to analyze that and are now running tests on what they believe may provide a cure for people with diabetes.
Wow.
That type of thing, and I think we're going to see it in cancer and other areas like that. I think we're going to see massive things there because the AI is able to do computations and comparisons and analysis so much faster. Same on the investment side. I mean, think of how much faster a well-trained AI could assist a seasoned investment analysis to do things faster and better. Not replace them, because it still can make mistakes, just like a junior person can make mistakes, or even for that matter, I mean, we've seen, we just started those. Sam Altman made a few mistakes in what he said ChatGPT 5 was going to be. So, I mean, it can happen. I think it's going to continue to move at a breakneck pace. I think, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, I think we are going to see additional opportunities for us as a society open up around computing power and just electrical power availability in things that we hadn't thought of. Right now we see communities, at least in the U.S. Well, we've got to be careful about this, or we've got to be careful about that. I have a staff member in South Africa. They still regularly have brownouts and power outages and times that the power goes out. I think those things that are not necessarily AI related will largely become a thing of the past, because the technologies and the infrastructure will improve at such a level that we won't need it. I mean, look at just simple internet access. I have a Starlink now. In the old days, I needed to have fiber or whatever brought to my home or my business in order to do that. I now literally can take a plastic square rectangle, put it out facing the north sky from where I'm located, and I can get multi-hundred megabit internet from satellites. Who says that couldn't happen with electricity in parts of the world that there aren't? I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying it will, but I think those are the type of things, Bruce, in my mind, that we're going to see that AI will play a role in, but won't necessarily be AI advancements when we look at them historically, if that makes sense.
Right. They'll help make it better.
Yes.
There's already a couple of years ago during the pandemic, there was some things that sat next to the couch. Let's think like a small refrigerator size thing that essentially would send out a wireless signal to power your phone. It would lock on your phone. So, we're not that far from that kind of stuff. I mean, internet continues to speed up, right? There's
Absolutely.
all kinds of new protocols, right? We're Wi-Fi 7E. I don't know. Things just keep going at a rapid pace. So as we come into the close here, you going anywhere to speak? You appearing anywhere? You got anything you want to hype? What's going on with Jonathan next?
It's funny you say that. We try not to go to more than about one place a month in person, just because I'm not a huge fan of the travel. I don't mind it, but it's just tiring. At the moment I'm sitting in Alabama. I'm headed back up to Michigan at the end of the week. We're going to be in Washington, D.C. in about 3 weeks. I'm going to be in Dallas a couple weeks after that. Then a couple other locations. So yeah, there's always opportunities. Nothing specific other than that. If I want to encourage people, if you want to learn about AI, if you think this is okay, it's time we pay attention. It's not too late, by the way, as you said. We're just at the beginning of this wave. But pay attention to people, Bruce, like your podcast. Check in on the stuff I do. Most of it's free. Learn what's going on, because there's so much opportunity for us to actually improve ourselves, improve our families, improve our communities, if we're willing to look at it not purely through negative glasses.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. If you need strategy, if you need consulting, if you need information on AI, if you need a guy with a white beard and a baseball cap, Jonathan Mast is your man, ladies and gentlemen. Look him up. What's the name of the group? The easiest way to find you is on Facebook, I think. How many are in the group, and what's the name of the group on Facebook, Jonathan?
Yeah, we run a group on Facebook called AI Prompts for Entrepreneurs. We're just shy of 450,000 people as we record this today. And everything there, as you know, is free. Tons and tons of information. In fact, Bruce, thankfully you share there a lot, and I'm really grateful for that.
Thank you, Jonathan. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Jonathan Mast in an hour or less for your consideration. Look forward to the next interview and continuing to follow you. Maybe we'll run into each other out there somewhere on the road. But thank you, Jonathan, and thank you guys for sitting in with us today. And look forward to more coming out of Whitebeard in the days to come.
Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you.
Have a great day. Peace out, everyone.